I want to thank 5 Star and Ryan Grossetti for being my latest subscribers. Thank you very much. So TNA was a taped show from Wembley Arena in London, England. And unfortunately, the show started off with Hogan. Hogan talks about naming a #1 contender who will face Jeff Hardy at Lockdown for the World Heavyweight Championship. And he says that he's going to have 4 evaluation matches, and that he's going to pick that #1 contender from the individuals who participate in these 4 matches. The matches being Magnus versus Christopher Daniels, Kurt Angle versus Samoa Joe, James Storm versus Rob Van Dam, and Robert Roode versus Austin Aries. And that's the one I have a major problem with. Hogan also talks about Aces and Eights issuing a challenge against Team TNA at Lockdown. So he calls Sting out, and while doing so, he refers to Sting as the greatest wrestler of all time. Hogan, you're not good at reverse psychology. So Sting comes out in his robe like he's about to wrestle, but he's not. So why is he wearing the robe? But nevertheless, he comes out and accepts the challenge, so it becomes official. Aces and Eights against Team TNA at Lockdown. So then you had Magnus against Christopher Daniels. Decent match. Magnus wins. Hopefully this will continue the push of Magnus into gaining prominence, in the company and becoming a future championship contender. So then you had Kurt Angle against Samoa Joe. It's an okay match. It ended in a no contest when Garrett Bischoff and Wes Briscoe attacked Angle and Joe, but then Angle and Joe, beat them back down. Another example of Aces and Eights never getting an advantage, even if it is Garrett Bischoff and Wes Briscoe. But then again, who is really going to believe that these two are going to beat down Joe and Angle? Nobody. It's not going to look convincing at all. So then you had the mixed tag team match. Marty Scurll and the Blossom Twins from British Boot Camp against Gail Kim, Tara, and Mr. Duh. I would have much preferred that it was the Blossom Twins against Gail Kim and Tara, because I've never liked mixed tag team matches. The reason being, in this case you have the 2 men start out, and if the male wrestler on one team makes the tag to his female partner, then the other male wrestler on the other team has to do the same, and that just kills the continuity of the match. But it was a decent match. I thought the Blossom Twins looked very promising, and like I said last week, they would fill a need in the now defunct tag team subdivision within the women's division. But if TNA does sign them and it becomes official, then the commentators must be able to tell them apart. Who's Hannah and who's Holly? I mean, it was just ridiculous. Well, that's Hannah. No, that's Holly. Oh, well, Holly, Hannah. I mean, there are methods that the production team could give the commentators so that they could tell the 2 women apart. Visual cues, like dots, or putting the names on each woman, labels on screen, so that the commentators could, tell them apart. But I thought that Gail Kim had the best showing that she has had in a long time. Her ring work was solid, and one piece of her mic work was done exceptionally well. And this was after, she pinned, one of the Blossom twins, to win the match. I mean, she delivered a sweet insult to the so-called referee, Taryn Terrell. Speaking of Taryn Terrell, when I make reference to her, I use the word referee in quotes. If showing off your stupendous jugs is your idea of refereeing, then you're doing a good job, honey. So then Gail Kim turned to Tara and told Tara that she's coming after the title. And then Hogan's daughter walks out to some new theme music, which was complete cheese. And she announces that there's going to be a 4-way match next week for the Women's Championship. Tara against Gail Kim, Brooke Tessmacher, and Velvet Sky. And then Brooke Tessmacher and Velvet Sky, came out onto the ramp. So the inevitable is going to happen next week. So all you Velvet marks, get your baby oil, your lotion, or whatever the fuck you use, and get ready for next week so that we can see the inevitable happen and see the ramifications that result from that. So then you had James Storm against Rob Van Dam. Yeah, good match. Storm gets the win. And I've heard some people talking about, Rob Van Dam finally jobbed out. Well, it wasn't that big of a deal, so he jobbed out. So what? I mean, Rob Van Dam didn't lose any status. What, James Storm is going to wrestle Rob Van Dam for the X Division Championship? No. I mean, Storm is in a holding pattern right now because TNA doesn't know what to do with him. So Rob Van Dam wasn't going to lose anything by losing to Storm. It's not going to hurt him at all. And then there's the last of these evaluation matches. Robert Roode versus Austin Aries. I cannot stand this comedy crap that is going on with Roode and Aries. I don't get it. I mean, basically this was just a comedy match with some wrestling. I mean, these are the tag team champions and you have them facing each other. I mean, why even have them as a team if you're going to do this, let alone having them be the tag team champions in this situation? I mean, continuing to this bickering and arguing with each other when they should be a strong, united tag team. And then you have Chavo Guerrero and Hernandez come out, and this match ends in a double countout. Chavo Guerrero and Hernandez, faces, booed. Robert Roode and Austin Aries, heels, cheered. Because everybody likes their comedy. So how could you boo these guys? That's a fucking problem, TNA. And the thing about it is, I've heard people say this and I've read this. Robert Roode and Austin Aries as a tag team is being compared to a tag team in the WWE, and I wouldn't know who this team was because I don't watch WWE. It's straight up sewer garbage. I guess this team is called Team Hell No. Oh, that's a great name. I mean, WWE with the creativity of a grape. And I didn't even bother to look up who this team is because I don't care. why can't they make Rude and Aries a serious-minded tag team? They have the potential to make Rude and Aries the most sought-after tag team in the world. Now, you've heard my past commentaries. I said that if they're a serious-minded tag team, they have the potential to be the Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson of this wrestling era. I mean, wouldn't you like to see Rude and Aries go to Japan and defend their titles against the top talent from New Japan Pro Wrestling? Or have teams from Canada, Australia, or Mexico come after them for the titles? I mean, they would be able to do things that Tully and Arn weren't able to do. And instead of seeing the potential of them being compared to one of the greatest tag teams of all time, they're being compared to a lame WWE tag team. What the fuck does that tell you? But if you all prefer to have them compared to a WWE tag team, fine. I will never be on that train. So the show ends with Hogan in the ring, like we haven't seen enough of him on the show already. And he's about to name the #1 contender who will face Jeff Hardy at Lockdown. And then Aces and Eights comes out. 7 members of Aces and Eights. 7 members. And they're all prepared to jump on Hogan. And then Bully Ray comes out. Actually limps out and walks to the ring with that limp, holding his little chain attached to his wallet. And then Aces and Eights retreats temporarily. And then Sting comes out with 2 baseball bats and a cricket bat. Excuse me, there were 7 of them! It's too late to kill this storyline before Lockdown. They don't have the time to reconstruct anything. This has to end at Lockdown. This storyline. End it. I'm Tazmark 2002, and that was my TNA Impact Analysis for February 14th, 2013. Please leave your comments down below. Click like or dislike. And if you subscribe, I would really appreciate it. If you have any questions about TNA or wrestling in general, you want to get my take on them, get at me on Twitter, TAZMARK2002. And if your comments exceed the 140, then you can email me at tazmark2002@gmail.com. It was a solid show, but it had too much Hogan. If it wasn't one, it was the other. And if it wasn't either one of them, it was both of them together. Too much Hogan on my goddamn screen. But it was a solid show. I'm Tazmark 2002. Gone.